Good evening and welcome to Perspective. In the wake of mounting tensions between India and Pakistan, when India invents surgical strikes to violate peace across the LOC, our Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif has said that we stand shoulder to shoulder with our military against any outside perpetrator trying to infringe our territorial integrity. In the cabinet meeting, Prime Minister reiterated the importance of the Kashmiri cause and that Pakistan will not back down under any circumstances. India cannot claim Kashmir in the wake of this kind of situation. We will be talking about the repercussions of this kind of mounting tension, the war hysteria, the war mongering that is going on with particularly in India. And we will be talking about the repercussions likely to be expected for our region and for the Kashmiri cause. I have with me today Ali Sarwar Naqvi Saab, thank you so much for joining me, and Dr. Amna Mehmood, who is head of IR at Islamic University. Thank you for giving us your time. Naqvi Saab, to start off with you, how do you see the kind of situation that we're in right now with regard to India? You know, they're inventing this surgical strike. What exactly is this surgical strike? Can you elaborate a little on that?
Yes, surgical strike is a action, military action,
right,
whereby some particular area or people of a certain group or a certain organization
right,
are focused upon, and military action in terms of bombing or artillery fire is undertaken
right,
against that target. So it's either the target area or target group, and if it's a group, then it can be over a larger area because
right,
the group is spread over that area. If it's an area only, then it's only focused on that particular piece of land, which is what they want to strike at.
right.
So surgical strike is it's a term borrowed from surgery, from medicine.
Right.
Just as an operation is for a certain particular organ,
Right.
if it's the heart or if it is the lungs or if it is the kidney, then
Right.
there is the operation is focused on that particular organ and
Right.
to rectify any irregularity or any growth or any
Right.
tumor or whatever.
Right.
So the military has borrowed that term from medicine, and surgical strike is exactly the same thing that that the medicine concept contains, which is that they hit a particular area. Now, having explained that, I will address your main question.
Right.
That this kind of situation is number one. The question in my mind is whether this was a surgical strike, because surgical strike in modern military warfare
Right.
also includes air element of aircraft which can carry out bombing. So
Right.
I don't think that has happened in this case. So it is wrong for the Indians on a very technical ground to describe it as surgical strike.
Right.
Now, what has happened is that they have carried out a cross-border violation, but
Right.
this they have done at different periods of time for various reasons, and they have violated the sanctity of the line of control, which is most unfortunate, and they should never do it. But they
But
do
this
it.
was done under the guise of a surgical strike, so to speak, right?
They described it because, you know, the Indian government is under enormous pressure from their media and public opinion that they must be seen to take action to punish Pakistan or to take action which should be decisive in stopping Pakistan from what they allege is that we are interfering in Kashmir. Okay?
Or also, could it be the fact that the world is finally listening to the Kashmiris?
Yes, I think in the modern day and age, you see today in 2016, you cannot hide these things. If there are atrocities being committed, then the pictures come out all the time.
Right.
And you know, in the case of Syria, if the Russians are bombing Syria or Aleppo, then all the pictures are coming out.
Right.
So this case of military action and atrocities against the people of Kashmir who are unarmed and innocent. They should not be subjected to this kind of brutality.
Right, of course, there's no doubt about that.
But the Indian forces are determined to do it because they think that will suppress that desire on their part to agitate for self-determination.
Right.
This is a foolish venture because it will not lead to anything. Even if they suppress this particular phase of agitation.
Let me come back to you.
After it will recur again.
Yes. Dr. Amna, because of your background, particularly in international relations, can you tell us a little bit about the scenario that is coming out? You know, India wanted to isolate us, but the contrary has happened. We've actually gotten a lot of support from Turkey, from China. We have the Russian troops here. So effectively, Pakistan is really not alhamdulillah, in that position. But how do you see our region, you know, with this kind of war-mongering and war hysteria that's been created? What impact will this have?
Certainly, it would not carrying a very good effect for this region. But you know, if you go to history, India has always been trying to do that with Pakistan. They started in the beginning to isolate Pakistan, but Pakistan is on a very important strategic location.
Right.
So nobody, even a superpower like United States cannot ignore Pakistan, even a superpower like Russia cannot ignore Pakistan. And now the emerging power, China, they cannot ignore Pakistan in any way. If you want to have strategic relations, then you cannot ignore Pakistan. If you want to have economic relations, Pakistan is on the major trade route crossing from Gulf, going to Indian Ocean. In fact, nobody can cross and enter into Indian Ocean without coming to Arabian Sea and Gulf. So I think Indian efforts have been futile like ever, and they are going to be right now again. The second point you raised, that certainly this hype of war and warmongering is not in favor of not only in this region but for the world. And this is the point which India led to now. You know, Kashmiris are making uprising, atrocities, and number of months has been passed, and world was giving least heed to that issue.
Right.
But now when India started this war mania, they are standing on our border, and they have crossed, and as they claim, Naqvi was referring to, they claim that they have done surgical strike. Right. They have alarmed the world again themselves.
Right.
And instead of making Pakistan isolation, they have become with Pakistan on the forefront. Now the whole world would rush to mediate and to stop a war between two nuclear neighbors.
Right.
Certainly that effort which was which they were trying in their favor, that goes against them, and that is, exactly, that is backfired.
Naqvi sahab, what Dr. Amna is just saying, how far do you agree with the fact that this is actually a countermeasure? It's backfired, and actually the attention that they wanted to deflate from this Kashmir issue has actually, it's rebounded. How far do you agree with that? I mean, the Kashmiris' cause will probably get more attention this way.
Yes. You see, as I mentioned before also at one point, the Indian government is under pressure from its own domestic constituency,
right,
from its media, which is extremely hyper. I have gone to some Indian television programs, and they are so hostile to Pakistan, it is unimaginable. Once I almost got up and left because, you know, they were abusing Pakistan, insulting Pakistan, doing all kinds of things. So there is that pressure. And then the extreme right organization that the BJP gets its support from, the Shiv Sena and all, they are all up in arms that that Pakistan must be taken to task for what for the Uri attack, basically. So whatever happened in Uri is still unclear because nobody knows.
But that's what Naqvi sahab, what do you feel about? I mean, what did happen in Ori attack? Why hasn't that come out? Why haven't they given any proof to their media?
I know, that is the problem. You see, I am just analyzing the situation.
Right.
I don't know what happened in Uri, and I don't think that they should make that an issue. But the reason why they are making it an issue is also understandable. That is to divert attention from Kashmir, what is happening in Kashmir. Now, this is the scenario inside India. And that the ripple effect of that is in Pakistan. In fact, Pakistan is becoming the butt and the target of their hostility.
Right.
But internationally, it is having the reverse effect. And I agree. I think that the international community is now going to focus on the reason why this is happening, and they will immediately come to the problem of Kashmir, and they will realize that there is a lot of unrest in Kashmir, and that is not in India's favor.
Right.
That is against India's international image.
Right. Dr. Amna, yes, it is against the kind of image that India wants to show to the world. The narrative that they have till now tried to stress on is you know, very different from the kind of face that is now coming out towards to the world. But as an international relations expert, can you tell us a little bit why is there so much hostility? And Naqvi, Ali Sarwar Naqvi Sahab was just talking about that, and he was just explaining it to us how there's a lot of hostility, and I completely agree with him. Even yesterday we had somebody who was telling us how even on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook and all these social media forums, even in the public generally, there is a lot of hostility, and that one word that they start from is hostile or abuse, you know, instead of trying to rationally reason out arguments and to see both sides of the story. Why is that?
This always happened whenever there is tension between India and Pakistan, it happens. And as you just pointed out, your incident was, actually it was not an unplanned, it was planned at the time when Prime Minister of Pakistan and Prime Minister of India has to present himself, their point of view, their nation's point of view.
Right.
So it was just created just to counter Pakistan's assertions about atrocities committed by Indian forces in Kashmir, and they created this. But you know, once you start media hypes, they are beyond control.
Right.
And now Indian government, they cannot control it. And you know, BJP and RSS, they are having the same histories. They have been hostile towards Pakistan. They have their certain agenda, and they motivate some of the think tanks and some of the media houses, and then create hype against Pakistan. And it happens almost in midterm of their elections. When the midterm comes, they create Pakistan, because their performance as far as economy is concerned, that is not that was expected in the beginning, as Modi president pretended. And now they have to go into next elections, so they are creating a middle time issues. And issue has been again always against Pakistan, but this time it happens as a serious issue, because you know, social medias are very strong. Twitter, Facebook and everything. And this public, young public, they are not knowing the background of Indian and Pakistan hostility. They don't know the background of Kashmir. I mean, I was going through some of the tweet of an Indian youngster. He wrote that why Kashmiris are now having uprising at the time of 1947. They requested us to intervene and save us from Pakistan army. You know, this is sort of illusion that was created by Indian media previously. And Indian public, if they would be knowing the reality, and we have confronted number of time Indian scholars in number of conferences when they claim that document of accession is with us because Maharaja requested us, and they refuse to accept the claim that Muslim population, more than 80%, they have any right to claim their right of self-determination. So this is the picture which was presented to Indian public, Indian youth, and they are having this scenario. And whenever there is, you know, if you see the cricket match issues, whenever there is, both are in the same ground, both sides are very, you know, they are very, very energetic, and they are very strong against each other. not having these as the regular right. It should be taken as cricket diplomacy.
The spirit of sportsmanship. Like
yeah,
you said.
exactly. That should be there. But these are all ignored in case of India and Pakistan. So one thing is good, that in India and Pakistan, people are united on national interests. So we do. Hum bhi to aise hi. We all do that.
Right.
Because we are all concerned about our national interests. So what is required, that we should propagate our national interests with the same zeal as Indian are doing on social media, and we have to counter.
Doubtless, but propagating our own national interest, like we saw the PM speech at the UN, which was very calculated, very moderate, extending that both nations should sit together towards bilateral dialogue, so that we could resolve the issue of Kashmir. Very balanced, very reasonable speech, not at all fiery, not at all trying to ignite any sort of unsavory emotions in the Indians, whatever that did, but that's the target, and that's how the PM did it, and which was quite exemplary. But on the Indian side, we don't see such restraint. That doesn't happen.
I think it was Indian agenda before coming to UN. They have created all these scenario, and they wanted to lead this Kashmiri uprising to the direction that it would be the possibility of international war between India and Pakistan. And as I just mentioned, that planning was counterfired and backfired, because they thought that in this way world would press Pakistan not to intervene in Kashmir and not to support Kashmiri people, and instead Kashmir is not on the world agenda, by the way. And people are not very conscious about that. They are not knowing the background, and we are unsuccessfully persuading that agenda for so many years without having comprehensive planning and efforts. We are actually reacting when there is uprising and Indian atrocities. We react for some time, and then we go into cold storage. But right now, when this time India started this campaign against Kashmiri's fresh uprising, they wanted to suppress it there and then, but they could not. So what they did, they wanted to pressurize Pakistan in a way that the whole world should be after Pakistan to stop a nuclear war, possibility of a nuclear war. So that went against them.
It
because Kashmiris are not important for the world, but nuclear war is very alarming for them. So you see that US envoy also just gave a statement, and before that he was not interested in Kashmiri atrocities.
Let me take Naqvi Saab's input on this. Naqvi Saab, what do you think that is it? Yes, of course it backfired, and yes, maybe we have the world attention right where we want it, but at the same time we would not want to de-escalate the situation, because sanity should prevail between the two nations. How far do you think it's true that this was done as possibility of international war between the two nations, and it was done because then the world would intervene and the issue would deflate?
Depends upon who did it. You see, I mean, I personally think that the uprising in Kashmir was a good enough cause, because the people of Kashmir were agitating. It was a statewide uprising which involved demonstrations, protests, and daily people coming out on the street daily. So that, I think, was having the good effect, or at least, I mean, good in the sense that it was not a good happening, but it had the effect of bringing attention of the world to Kashmir. So I think what Uri terrorist attack has done was deflect attention from Kashmir, and that whoever has done it has actually harmed the Kashmiri cause, because there is no reason. What has happened is that India has pounced upon this incident as the real problem. That's not the real problem. The world should realize that this Uri attack is just one of the passing things, but actually it is the Kashmiri uprising that is the problem.
But is it Modi Sarkar's foreign policy gone bad?
I think, and then the result of it was that it has backfired, because the diversion from Kashmir cannot really be brought about by the Indians. because Kashmir is. Yes, I think his foreign policy has faced a setback, and that is why they are becoming so hostile, and that is why they are indulging in these cross-border violations and claiming that these are surgical strikes. So, you know, it all links up. Now, the point is that the Indians have much greater clout in the world. They are listened to much more. So, they are probably at the moment succeeding in convincing the world that it is because of the terrorist attack that there is trouble between Pakistan and India. But this will not be possible to hide. It will not be possible to hide the Kashmiri uprising. So eventually world attention will go to Kashmir and not to Uri.
But isn't it true that the world is also looking at the fact that they really don't have any proof? I mean, they haven't been able to explain the Uri attack.
Yes.
And now on top of that, they've launched another offensive, which is this surgical strike, which they're speaking about, for which they have no proof again.
Right.
So how is the world ever going to justify the fact that, you know, Pakistan perpetrated any of this?
Yes, I think this is something that is based entirely on suspicion and on a misrepresentation by India. And this is something that Pakistan has always objected to, and has found that it is nevertheless true that the international community is not paying attention to the problem of Kashmir. And that's where the Prime Minister's speech comes in.
Right.
And I think he made a very good case, because he outlined the brutalities in Kashmir. And he then said that there should be an international investigation about all these, what is happening in Kashmir, as well as the Uri attack and everything. So Pakistan is making the right points. It has sent out 22 parliamentarians to all over the world, to all the capitals. So we are making all the effort. But you see, the perception doesn't change overnight, and we should be prepared for a long haul, and it will take time. But eventually, I think we would probably be able to convince the world of what is happening.
Inshallah. Dr. Amna, like Naqvi Saab is just saying that, you know, we will inshallah be able to convince the world of the Kashmiri cause eventually. How do you see our international relations? How do you see that, you know, we will, how long, you know, I'm not asking you to put a timeline on it, but how do you feel, you know, the way we are going at this rate, we've sent the envoys, like Naqvi Saab is saying, the Prime Minister's speech. He's also said that, you know, an independent commission should go into Kashmir Valley to investigate the atrocities and so that the world can actually see the real picture of what is actually happening. And Burhan Wani happened, and, you know, that also, of course, ignited the issue and showed it to the world in a way that probably it hadn't before. But how do you think that this will pan out for the Kashmiris in particular, you know, those who are suffering right now?
If we could get that commission appointed for fact-finding in Kashmir, that would be a great success on the part of Pakistan. And I think that this is right now, this is the main motive of Pakistan's struggle. But I think that it is very hard to achieve, you know.
Right, because India is so against it.
Because one, India never accept any mediation. Second, we cannot build that much pressure without having a permanent member of UN Security Council on in confidence and on our side. And I think that is not very much expected. What maximum we expect that in case of possibility of war on international border, US and its allies would enter and intervene, and then they would pursue both capitals to come to the terms and sit together for negotiations and so. What right now India is doing, that they are violating LOC, and that is a routine. And if we see some UN intervention, you know, there are permanently appointed observers on LOC, and they are noting it, they are having, witnessing all that. But they have no difference, you know, at any time. As Naqvi Saab pointed out, that these surgical strikes, surgical strike word is specifically used to divert the world attention that actually this is not indigenous uprising in Kashmir. The terrorists trained in Pakistan are harbor and transported to Kashmir, and they are working like mujahideens. So they termed it as surgical strike, and in fact no surgical strike is conducted in because Pakistan Army is there and they are not sitting idle. They cannot allow any of the external force to cross the border and do the surgical strike and then go back. And if you go to that terrain that is on LOC, it is not easy to conduct surgical strike with land armies. As Naqvi pointed out, certainly airstrike was required for that purpose. And this is the propaganda which was laid by Indians at the time of Kargil, at the time of 1965 war, and again they are doing the same. I think that would be counterproductive for them again. And if they would raise the tension, then there would be negative point for India. And for that purpose, Pakistan Army would have this justification to cross the LOC and target those Indian camps working to destabilize Pakistan in Balochistan and other areas also.
Right. Naqvi Sahab, like Dr. Amna is saying that, for them, it's the pretext of the surgical strike and the fact that, Pakistan, their rhetoric about the fact that Pakistan harbors terrorism and all that. And yet we are the ones who have caught Yadev, Gulbashan Yadev. We have the one who have the proof. We have a ready-made proof that, this is what India is doing.
Yes.
So how will this change? How the world is clear? It's very clear for the world to see which state is doing what, isn't it?
Well, you see, the world also looks at it in the background of the recent history of India and Pakistan, and there has been the Mumbai attack, and then Pathankot, and now Uri. The point is that there have been suspicions about people going from Pakistan who might have conducted terrorist activities on Indian soil. But you see, that may or may not be true. I don't know. So I will leave it open. But the point is, to me, the important point is that this is all because of Indian suppression of the rights of the Kashmiri people. Because what is the cause of all this? The cause of this is not terrorism per se, but there are people who are fighting for their rights, and they will resort to every means. And this is true of any freedom movement anywhere in the world, that they have done that. So, Palestine, what's happening in Palestine? The Israelis think that the Palestinians are doing it just to cause them harm, but that's not the reason. The reason is that the Israelis are depriving the Palestinians of their rights. Similarly, in India, the Indian government is depriving the Kashmiris of their rights and not allowing them to have a free expression of their wishes.
So they are themselves responsible for any kind of reaction that comes out in this form then?
Exactly. So, this will not disappear just because they undertake cross-border violations. This will not disappear if they want to, do surgical strikes. In fact, they cannot do, number one, they cannot do surgical strikes because it is clear violation of international law. And Pakistan will have a right to go to the Security Council and claim protection of the UN under Chapter 7 of the UN Charter. So that is a much more serious matter. It is another matter that this is just a claim and there is no actual proof of surgical strikes. But if and when they make the stupid mistake of undertaking a proper surgical strike, they will be violating international law. So that path is not something that they should follow. And as regards terrorism, they allege Pakistan to be tolerant of terrorists or not suppressing them, but Pakistan itself is the victim of terrorism. We have the largest anti-terrorist military operation
in the world,
anywhere in the world. So, I mean, what is the problem? We are doing what we can, and we will continue to fight the terrorists. We are against terrorists. And the Prime Minister has said that we are victims of terrorism ourselves.
Of course, Dr. Amna, of course, we are the biggest victims of terror. Our soldiers, their bodies, our martyrs who are fighting the war on the border, we are the actual victims of terror. And like Naqvi Sahib has just said, we have the largest operation against terrorism, and our nation has suffered, our children have suffered, you know. But the point is, why does that narrative not carry as much force? The world, of course, now the world's eyes are drawn to anybody, the word terrorism, it's drawn to terrorism, it is drawn to areas which are the subject of terrorism. So why does our narrative perhaps not come across as clearly as it should, the fact that, you know, we are a nation fighting terrorism and we are the victims instead of perpetrators at any time?
I think it's a little bit, there is a fault on our side also. We could not bargain on our national interests at the right time. Right. When we entered into war on terrorism, we should have taken some safeguard against that, against any encroachment by Afghanistan, by India, and then we should, at that time we were actually the need of that alliance of war on terror. Right. And they could not conduct any operation, even the logistic activities without Pakistan. But we lacked that skill to bargain on the right issues at the right time. Right. And you know, if you remember that when we were part of collision, we were the frontline state against USSR in 1980s. There was a Pressler Amendment against Pakistan that was Pakistan specific, and that was passed at that time where Pakistan was at bargaining position, but we could not. Even the government was not able to cater for the consequences of that Pressler Amendment. So let it be done, and then we have to face repercussions in 1990s. Same happened in Musharraf era also, and after that we never came to the position, we never enjoyed that leverage which we were having at that time. So now we have lost that leverage, and world is not going to pay any attention because Pakistan is no more having that much leverage that it was having at the time of 9/11, 2001 and 2 and later on. And secondly, Pakistan government, they don't have any plan, comprehensive plan. Foreign Office does whatever they do, but whenever there is a government change, policies are changed, there is no consistency, and that policy is not taken with that much rigorous that should be taken. You know, if you were referring to the speech of Prime Minister last year in 2015, he did the same. He offered India peace efforts on 4-point agenda, and India never responded. And we did nothing to highlight that. We did not take up the issue with the allied powers that they are not coming to the terms. They should be taken to that point, and so. It means that we are lacking that skill. We are lacking that skill. We are lacking that commitment that India is having. You know, when they start campaign, BJP and Congress, they are having lot of differences at home. But when they were talking about Sushma Swaraj's speech in UN, all were on the same page. Rather, Congress was more hostile, that Pakistan should be sorted out in a more hostile way, and Pakistan should be taken to the task, you know. So it means that that consensus should be there in Pakistan also, and we should not compromise on our national interests. One thing, I being the student of international relations, I am not in a favor of submissive foreign policy. I am not in a favor of compromising on national interests. You know, you have seen India, they are always on the front foot. They are having aggressive foreign policy, so the others come to the terms. Pakistan is a nuclear power. We are having our well-defined national interest, and we should not compromise on that. When you are not going to compromise, certainly nation will come to the terms, because Pakistan is a nuclear power ultimately.
Right. So, Naqvi Sahib, like Dr. Amna is saying, yes, you know, we should, India is always, but then, you know, India is always more aggressive and India is always on one page. The Prime Minister, of course, has said that we are all on one page as far as our national interest is concerned, and we will fight India if they say if there is any sort of retaliation from their side, or if there is any sort of perpetration from their side, we will retaliate, and we have every right to do so militarily in any other means. But the fact that the downside of having this aggressive India is again the kind of situation that we've seen here now. You know, once it's beyond control, the media is also now beyond control. Isn't that true?
I think this is a very short-sighted policy on the part of the Indian government.
Yeah.
Why? You know, most important, if there is, God forbid, actual conflict in the region between our two countries,
Right.
the Indian economy is going to suffer far more than Pakistan. The Indian economy, you know, the Mumbai stock exchange has crashed. It has come down 500 points, while Karachi was only 100 points down. So, relatively speaking, India has suffered more. They have wiped out more money from their stock exchange than we have not wiped out even 1/5 of that. So, I think the Indian government must realize that this is a very dangerous game. They are playing with fire, because Pakistan is fully prepared to defend itself, has the military ability to do so. So, Pakistan will take retaliatory action against India, and the Indians cannot play around with Pakistan in this manner. So, what they need to do is address their problem in Kashmir, and they have to do something to calm down the temperature. First, they must stop the atrocities. They must stop the atrocities immediately.
Right.
Second, they must look for a solution to the problem. And this is what the international community is saying. This is what Ban Ki-moon has said in his statement.
Right.
This is what the US State Department spokesman has said in his statement today. So, the world is also sensible and doesn't want this kind of thing to escalate beyond hell.
Both the countries being nuclear powers also.
And
strategically.
Eventually, the question of nuclear power comes in, and that, God forbid that anything of that kind happens in this region.
But from your experience, as a diplomat also, when you talk about the foreign policy in Pakistan, and when we consider our past and we look at what we've done so far, isn't it better to have this sort of a reasonable approach to this the Kashmir problem at large than have this sort of fiery and reactive kind of approach that is coming out from India, or has come out since then?
Listen, this particular Kashmiri uprising has not been due to anything that Pakistan has done.
Right.
It has happened spontaneously, and the whole valley is on fire. The entire population of Kashmir is up in arms. This is not what Pakistan has done. So, Pakistan actually has not created this situation. Our foreign policy has been reasonable. We have offered the Indians talks. We first offered them talks in UFA summit. Then we had the foreign secretary level talks when the national security advisors met in Bangkok, and then we again wanted to have the SAARC summit, and that too the Indians have refused to participate in. So we are doing what is, I think, reasonable, and we have taken a very sensible approach. But if India chooses to be unreasonable, then obviously we will face that situation as best as we can.
And of course we're prepared to do that. Dr. Amna, when we look at the global situation, and we look at Pakistan and India and our strategic importance in the region as a whole, how do you think we've come this far with the same rhetoric? And you know, our diplomatic efforts, our foreign policy, it was geared towards, you know, a diplomacy that is geared towards the both nations sitting together, trying to come out with a viable solution to the Kashmir problem. Because Kashmir, like the Prime Minister has said, like our government has reiterated again and again, is the crux of the issue. And whenever India wants to talk, they say that yes, you know, let's talk, but let's not talk about Kashmir. When we have this kind of a reaction from India, what is Pakistan to do?
Actually, the problem lies in 1990s when we adopted the comprehensive dialogue. When we started when we were doing issue-specific dialogue, that was easy to take one issue and then to negotiate on that and then to resolve it. But since we have adopted this comprehensive dialogue, when they stop talking on Kashmir, the whole dialogue is process is blocked.
Right,
That is the problem. We should review it. That what should be that strategy to handle issues one by one on the priority basis. Certainly, Kashmir is our priority, but better strategy is to take all issues simultaneously according to their importance. You know, water issue is very important. If we are stuck to Kashmir, water issue is being neglected, and they are making dams and building dams and and taking away our water. And Pakistan is going to, they are actually going to conduct a genocide in Pakistan if they would block our water, and our crops would be blocked. So I think that Pakistan should review its strategy and talk to India. And certainly this war hype or this all tension, it will not block the process of negotiation. It will actually facilitate. And certainly there would be no war. It is, I am 100% sure there would be no war. The whole world would come and insist India and Pakistan to come to negotiation table, and India has to come to negotiation table to present itself a very responsible member of UN and a big power of this region. They have to maintain that posture, and they have to come to the terms.
Well, we've hoped so far, but to our disappointment, that hasn't happened.
But I think that it is going to happen that now, as the tension will mount, certainly they would come to negotiation tables, because from Pakistan side, all efforts were futile and they were not coming. But the whole world will come, and they will insist that including all issues should be negotiated, including Kashmir. And I think that would be happen, and in few months we will see all that. But right now Pakistan should continue to assert on its point of view, on its stand, and we should not retreat in any case. And India is having this strategy that they come on front foot, they become aggressive, and they see that Pakistan is going on back foot. This time Pakistan is not going to be.
No, it's not. It's definitely not. Unfortunately, that's all the time that we have today. Thank you so much for joining me. Yes, Kashmir is the integral issue. Yes, the Prime Minister has said so. Yes, we as a nation stand with our military, and if India perpetrates, we will retaliate in every manner that we know, and we are fully capable of doing so. But at the same time, we all hope that sanity will prevail in India, because certainly in our environment of today, it is not feasible for Pakistan or India economically and politically to engage in any sort of warfare. But as it is today, we hope that Kashmiri plight will be heard in the world, and the world takes notice. Thank you so much for joining me today on Perspective.